pandemic, but I wanted to spend some time just really grounding us in some definitions to ensure we have a shared understanding. So distance learning actually doesn't even require any type of technology. That is when a teacher and a student are just in physically two different locations. And so in response to COVID, when students were sent home and we had continuity of learning plans, let's say a learning packet or some type of independent work at home, that's an example of remote learning or distance learning. And then digital learning or e-learning, that is that broader umbrella where any type of integration of technology and tools of sorts that would count as digital or e-learning. So it's that big umbrella. And then we have that hybrid learning where sometimes students are leveraging technology in a physical building. They're learning in school, and then they're also learning at home. And then you also have blended learning when you are incorporating technological tools. And then you have emergency remote learning, which is that sudden movement to learning in a virtual setting without that much preparation. And then all of these differ from virtual learning, which is the intentional implementation of leveraging technology to deliver self-directed learning, which we would call asynchronous learning, and also teacher facilitated, which is that live synchronous learning. There also is distance and geography, but the emphasis is on being intentional of delivering the instruction. And so we have a variety of initiatives that are aligned to this work. And the first one is the Virtual Learning Days, and it impacts every student in Baltimore City Public Schools. So as you all are aware, MSDE has given us an option to offer virtual learning days for a variety of reasons. Our implementation this school year is directly aligned to policy EBCD and also regulation EBCD RA. In essence, we have come before you already to share, and with your blessing and approval, we are implementing virtual learning days to support inclement weather. And so we are lucky that we have not experienced a snow day yet, but we know that February and March are, they're interesting, so we're not sure. But there will be, if there is snow days, 3 traditional snow days. Students are off, staff are off, and they are resting, engaging some time with their family. But in the event, the unlikely event this year, if a 4th day is implemented, we will open up our devices and engage in virtual learning. We are asking staff to ensure that they're able to pick up operations that would take place in a brick and mortar and have them live virtually. And so there's been a lot of resources and supports provided to school leaders in order to prepare for that this school year. So there is a guidance document that really outlines the MSDE expectations. There is a document where staff roles and responsibilities are outlined. What should every single staff member be doing? If you're not instructing students, how can you be engaged during this virtual learning day? And there's also a readiness checklist that really emphasizes tech readiness. For our instructional staff, there are some things that teachers can be doing now, like taking devices home, practice logging on to Zoom, and even now posting weekly assignments and weekly activities in an LMS just to get students comfortable with accessing their Zoom links and really to practice blended learning. There is content guidance on how to prioritize certain content because it is a 4-hour instructional day. And then there are supports for families. What are FAQs? What do you need if you're at home for virtual learning, and what you can do to prepare? So in addition to that virtual learning day that we have yet to implement this year, we also have virtual online course offerings. And so this is exciting work that has actually already been in play prior to this year. Various teams within city schools have found a need to really offer some type of virtual offering to our students. And so they live in teaching and learning, they live with the recovery team, they live in a variety of teams who really see that there are students who need access to some content areas. There is a gap, and so virtual learning offers an opportunity to extend the learning to a certain subset of students. And also there is a unique group of students who really require flexibility in their day. And so we have honors algebra, that's been taking place for some time. We have the Re-Engagement Center, who has night school that is offered virtually. We have credit recovery, where students have the option to learn and recover credit in person, as well as having an asynchronous option through a partnership with Apex. There is some opportunity for in-school intervention with virtual tutors. We have summer school options, AP expansion, and then also a few schools who've opted into a virtual world languages model. We also have a unique opportunity to try this innovative model entitled the Certified Virtual Substitute. And so, as you all are aware, this year, like many districts across the country, just really had some challenges with teacher shortages. And we all had to put our heads together to determine how are we going to uniquely solve this problem. And so we worked with human capital. There was some work done at the networks to determine what are the true vacancies. We know that there were some additional fundings and some of these positions are padded, but what do we really need to run a school building? We were able to move some folks around, have central office come and support, and those are things that we've done internally. We also did some outreach to some recent retires. Hey, we know you're resting. Welcome back to City Schools. We need you. And some folks rolled up their sleeves to serve our community. We recruited long-term substitutes in human capital with that strategy. And then we were also able to leverage this virtual model. And so what is the certified virtual substitute model? Essentially, all of our babies are in class. They have the technology they need to log on and to receive core instruction from a virtual teacher who is certified. We used the CVS, the coin. They are a certified educator, and they are actually implemented in about 30 schools. And we prioritized secondary. English, secondary, mathematics, as well as we've recently expanded to middle school science. We thought that our secondary students would be able to leverage this model where they are physically in a building. They have support from an in-person facilitator while receiving content and standards-based instruction from a certified teacher who just does not live in Maryland. And so currently, the in-person facilitators are paraeducators or our temps who really support the classroom management, ensuring students are locked in and engaged. I really say that the hands and the feet of this operation are the in-person facilitator, and really the content knowledge coming from the brain is the CVS, and then the heart comes from both the certified virtual substitute and the in-person facilitator to really build a relationship and ensure that the conditions are suitable for students to learn. And so in order to lift this model, we had to have a cross-office collaboration to really determine how we are going to implement it, who should we target, and what those supports would look like. And so those folks were onboarded. They were developed to use city school platforms. They were fingerprinted, background checked, and they also were asked to use our curriculum. And so the exciting part about this is that we have principals who are giving me authentic feedback. They're sharing me what their needs are, how we can make some adjustments. They are excited that themselves, their EAs, their APs are out of the classroom and they're able to lift other district initiatives, and that they have folks who are able to really focus and provide a consistent educator in front of the students daily. Students are excited that they can actually take home their laptops or open up their laptops each day to really put those tech skills into use. We have more schools who are increasing their CVS model. So those 30 schools, you see that there are 30 schools, but there are 40 substitutes already out there. That's because more schools have opted into expanding to middle school science. And then we're excited to think about how we could continue to leverage this for our para-teacher pipeline. For those folks who want more autonomy and more experience, and even those teacher preparation efforts, we've begun to think about what does it look like for that para-educator to serve as an in-person facilitator, and how that could be supporting their readiness to take on their own classroom. Some areas of development would be continuous professional development. We had an opportunity to onboard school leaders for an orientation meeting. We had an opportunity to onboard in-person facilitators, and we had the opportunity to onboard the CBSs, but there was an initial training, and we definitely see a need for continuous support on how to lift this hybrid model. We really need to continue to work on having consistent access to technology. And so we've been working with some draft policies with OIT to ensure that students are able to engage in learning daily. And then there's this idea of, will this model continue in the future? How do we assess whether or not we want to move forward, and how do we scale up operations? And then our ongoing work is to continue to do observations in person as well as virtually. How do we monitor and continue to provide supports to sustain the model? And then last but not least, the exciting work of the virtual learning programs has continued this year. And so I had the privilege last year to work alongside Principal Kelly Casagrande and Dr. Wilby around how do we design a virtual learning program that operates similar to a school that makes virtual learning their primary mode of instruction. And so it's unique from those other instances because those are taking a specific course and then really engaging in in-person learning, whereas these students are strictly virtual. They are strictly remote. And so we've worked really hard to design a program in which every student has access to core curriculum resource supports. Everything that their peers in a brick and mortar have, we have worked diligently to ensure that they have those same accesses. So we have two programs. We have Charm City Virtual Elementary Middle that serves around 500 students. And then we have Port High, and that services close to 400 students. And so it is a criteria entrance program where you have to have a strong attendance as well as demonstrated academic success. We emphasize these two criteria simply because there are instances where we cannot see the student. If their screen is black, we want to be sure that we have a student who's able to keep up with the mode of instruction and the rigor of the program. And so we do have unique and special circumstances that require waivers to enter, where we've partnered with various offices to support students. And we've also had some success with bringing some homeschool students back into the city. They're families who want their children at home, and so they're able to get a public education by attending Charm City Virtual or Port, and also still be able to support them and partner as a learning partner. And so we're excited because this year we were able to participate in the summer transfer window. We were also able to participate in the choice process as well as the winter transfer window. So if there are some families who met the criteria, who decided that this was for them, they were able to participate like every other school and join our virtual family. And so here is a snapshot into our enrollment. You can go to the next slide. So one of the things we wanted to highlight is the staffing model. As we all are engaging into budget sessions, brick and mortar schools are actually trying to implement a model that we have the benefit of being able to be on our second year of having educational associates or academic deans specifically emphasizing instructional support and instructional leadership. We have the opportunity to have culture and climate at associates, where they're really trying to define what does community look like virtually. We have the opportunity to have somebody strictly dedicated to technology integration. Are our students meeting their needs? Do they have the 21st century school, 21st century skills to be college and career ready, as well as how do we make sure that we're engaging everyone and leveraging technology effectively? And then we have this unique model where in the elementary middle courses, we have a paraeducator partnered with each teacher to ensure authentic engagement. And so we were excited to implement this staffing model and to see how other schools are beginning to have the same opportunity in the brick and mortar setting. And so the VLP spotlighting on the students and their experience for the elementary middle school students, they have been able to implement advisory for all grade levels, so not just middle school. They've also been able to give students additional technology outside of their devices to be able to engage in some things that you would think would go missing in virtual learning. For instance, Wacom's and iPads provide them a digital pen to continue to practice fine motor skills. In the high school, we have opportunity for project-based learning. So with things being technology, they're able to bring groups of students together, mixed ages, to be able to respond to their learning and have real-world application. We also have the opportunity to have Wednesdays devoted to intervention. It is really easy and to have flexible grouping using the virtual platforms. And so Monday and Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, traditional days, but Wednesday are specifically emphasizing intervention and corrective action. And then Wednesdays, they're able to dismiss early and have professional development for the teachers, and students have their own personalized learning plan to begin to continue their learning. Our family and communication, our family and community engagement has been pretty great in the VLP. There are a lot of in-person opportunities as well as virtual opportunities. So we have things like Parent University where they're able to get taught the lesson and get content support themselves, logging on and even having in-person opportunities to say, what's this math, what's this science that my child is engaging in. Schoology rollout, I know that we've adopted this as a district initiative for high schools, but it was piloted here at the VLP first. And so we've had in-person hands-on opportunity meetings for our parents to come in to say, you know, how can I really leverage this LMS and partner with our student and learning. We've had in-person field trips where our families were able to come and participate. And so we've just had a really great success with engaging the family, especially using those virtual meetings. One thing I did want to highlight is the SLP reflections. We've been able to take the district initiative and really determine how will it serve our virtual community. And so we have done SLCs with our SLPs. And so that's a student-led conference. We have our students presenting their progress and their growth on their SLP goals rather than it just be a teacher-led conversation. And so we've been doing that now for 2 years. And then supporting teachers in the virtual space. And so I mentioned previously that virtual learning is a unique opportunity to service students, but it also can support a teacher who may need to emphasize just content development and support. We're able to clearly remove some other responsibilities so that teachers can really hone in on what are really good tier 1 teaching skills. And so we're able to look at their informal feedback, really draft and adapt PD around what we're seeing, and then leverage those half days to support professional development. We also are able to easily collaborate with district offices to provide PD to ensure that our virtual practices are aligned. And so now I want to provide an opportunity. I know I've mentioned a lot of virtual options, but we did want to spotlight PORT. We are welcomed by some staff, some teachers, some students, but I would love if briefly Dr. Charlene Wilby can begin to give us greetings and then share with us which students will be speaking with us.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Director Lanier. And good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to share a portion of PORT with you this afternoon. Leading this work has been an amalgamation of different cultures, various teaching styles, the fine-tuning of various beliefs and expectations about virtual learning and how our students learn. It has been the rallying of teachers reporting from over 22 different states around a common vision, mission, and goals, knowing that we cannot afford to dilute the curriculum or the expectations of schooling for our scholars. It was also important to make that paradigm shift from what virtual learning was purported to be throughout COVID and let key stakeholders understand that our scholars will have the full experience of schooling and the only thing that made the difference was a screen. Expectations were clear from the onset. We prepare students to effectively navigate college and career. Our teachers and scholars understand what it means to provide opportunities by reimagining trajectories for our scholars. We have been seeing success in all aspects of schooling. For example, last year, our attendance rate was 89.3%. Seniors received a combined total of $3.2 million in scholarships. Graduation rate was 86.7%. Port retained 95% of its staff. We experienced a 10% increase in reading and a 9.6% increase in math. This year, we continue to see academic gains in all subject areas, and in particular, reading and math. Our scholars are proven winners. Two of our scholars were top 10 finalists in this year's Reginald F. Lewis Foundation's essay writing contest. They were awarded $500 each. Recently, one of our scholars was selected as a Baltimore City winner of Imagine Math Winter Contest. District representatives will be here tomorrow to present this award. It is my hope that Port will continue to be a viable option to support Baltimore City Public Schools in its quest to provide equity and inclusion for all students. For the upcoming school year, we will be expanding our reach by providing 4 courses where district-wide students are able to access. We also intend for Port to support in the alleviation of district-wide teacher shortages if adequate funding is made available. I will now turn your attention to our true recipient of our program, our scholars. Travis, you're up.
Hi, hello. My name is Grant Travis, and I am a senior at Port Virtual Learning Program. I've taken classes that align with what I want to do in the future. For example, I'm incredibly invested in the environment and sustainability. Hence, I was able to take an environmental science class and learn more about the things that we do and how it affects the environment. I've also been able to take dual enrollment courses in calculus and psychology. And despite what your expectations are of the Port Virtual Learning Program, the staff is incredibly supportive and they take care of my needs because I'm still able to make very close connections with staff and students. I need a space where students and staff are respectful and encouraging, and Port facilitates that perfectly. I feel as though I can express who I really am and talk about my goals and passions freely with support from those staff and students. I recently joined the Air Force and I have been mentored by the staff who have gone through what I will be going through. I do not think I'd be able to make any of those connections if I wasn't attending Port. Tamia?
Good evening. My name is Tamia Gatling, and I attend Port VLP at Digital Harbor. I believe that Port has supported me mentally as I do have social anxiety, and being around large groups of people have caused me panic attacks in the past. With this virtual learning program, I am allowed to learn in a space where I'm the most comfortable, which is my home. Also, by me being able to message my teachers privately in the chat and also via the messaging feature in Schoology, I am more comfortable with letting an adult know when something is going on with me. The staff at Port has provided me with the utmost support. I was out of school for a week due to an illness, and my teacher stayed in contact with me to see how I was doing the entire time. With the recorded lessons that are provided for students that are out with proof of absence, I am able to be all caught up and understanding of the work. I am also given additional coach class help if needed and a fair time frame to get the work completed. The diversity of the conversations that the teachers at Port have with their students also makes attending Port more enjoyable and comfortable for me. Port is literally a safe space for me that allows me to be my true self. Port has met my academic needs as well because I was always told that I have a lot of potential. I feel that when I was in in-person school, the main focus was always on students that were on a lower academic front than I was, so I wasn't given the push that I was needed. At Port, I am given that push. The work that I am given at Port is backed up by great teaching, which helps me understand everything more. Also, the diversity in the lessons help everything connect to real-life events, which is beneficial because students often get doubtful that school isn't beneficial in the outside world. And I'll pass it to David.
Hello there. My name is David Charles. I'm a student that goes to Port VLP, aka Virtual Learning Program. Port has met my needs to a lovable extent of me wanting to pursue my goals as an artist through music. Though that accomplishment is, still soon to come. I have learned many things at Port, from how to be an upstanding scholar at Port to being a successful person in my academics. I struggled with in-person schooling. And no, not just with academics, but with students and teachers. And no, I was not a bad student, nor did I get in trouble. I just lacked communication because of my discomfort to speak and my lack of acknowledgement towards other students and certain events. Things changed when I came to Port, though. My brows were less furrowed, like an animal escaping, but this time I actually escaped. Not to sound corny or anything. When I came to Port, there were a multitude of opportunities to art, from production to coding to anime and gaming interests, because I know a lot of students love gaming. I, for one, had a talent for music. This is where Port helped me out. Although I have a strong interest in music, Port was able to assist me in a way where they gave me a significant multitude of opportunities. My teachers introduced me to new forms of writing. I was introduced to different studio websites and devices. I also learned how to animate, which I never saw myself doing before. Things like Soundation, Wix, Canva, and Soundtrap. The students and teachers there were also lovely. Check this out. When I first came to Port, I thought the students were going to be obnoxious and the teachers were going to be inactive because of the learning environment we were in. But no, that was not the case. The teachers are kind, respectful, and motivating towards the youth that have goals and inspirations they want to acquire in the long run. That's actually why I'm here today. The students are mature and playful when times are needed, but most importantly, they're focused. Because just like me, they have goals themselves that Port VLP assists them with. That's why I'll always, and I mean always, be a #1 Port VLP supporter. I like to work on music when I get out of class, but since I'm at Port VLP learning program, I'm able to leave school educated, and not only educated, but prepared to work on music and on any other necessary requirements that are needed to be dealt with out of school. It's also a fun place and fun time to reach out to scholars I met at Port to ask and see if I missed any work if absent, or if they need help with any assignments. Port is a great place because it's your place, and it's also a safe environment. And if I see you here, let's be friends. We're all here to help, even the students, but most importantly, the teachers. Mrs. Muir?
Everyone, my name is Dr. Nika Mueller, and I bring you greetings from sensational South Carolina. Virtual learning has proven so beneficial for our students. Port VLP is a school that allows students the opportunities to grow, thrive, and excel in a safe learning environment without distractions. Teachers at Port VLP are equipped with the skills and intentionality to systematically build authentic, caring relationships with our students. As a second-year teacher here at Port, parents have personally thanked me for being invested in their students' success because I have shown up for them every single day, having perfect attendance these 2 years, which has helped cultivate rapport. Staff attendance is significantly higher here at Port due to the flexibility of the digital program. With increased student attendance rates and reading Lexile scores, students are meeting rigorous expectations. These positive relationships have factored into student outcomes. Virtual learning improves communication skills and adequately prepares students for college and career. More than 15 students who are rarely engaged during in-person instruction are now leading all group discussions virtually. As a former 2-time Teacher of the Year and District Teacher of the Year alternative, I have taught in person for 13 years, but I am able to build real connections with my students virtually in a more effective way. For example, I have more than 5 instances of students confiding in me about the need for food and housing. I was able to get them the help with those immediate needs. Students have opened up to me about mental health struggles, and I was able to provide the necessary resources to assist our scholars. Somehow, walls that divide are demolished and hope is built in this virtual setting. Virtual learning gives students a voice and a choice, and is one of the best kept secrets. With parents constantly requesting my colleagues and I to move up with their students and teach them an additional year, I know we're making an impact. Our scholars know they are safe. They know that we care. Not only are students educated by some of the top teachers in the nation, teachers have the opportunity to collaborate with other experts in their field, which is an opportunity of a lifetime. Although I'm in South Carolina, I am able to bring my experiences and perspectives and allow scholars to experience vicariously. Thank you, Ms. Kofer.
My name is Victoria Kofer, and I've been a Baltimore City teacher for the past 15 years and a Port teacher for the past 2 years. I've had the unique opportunity to teach both in person and in a virtual city program at Baltimore City. When I began virtual teaching, I had to rethink everything I knew about teaching and how to reach my students. Students with trauma, anxiety, depression, students who were high achieving, students who had SPED needs, you name it, I can name a strategy to teach that student now. Websites like Sheesh, Coda, Nearpod, ThingLink, Quizzes, all allow me to create flexible learning environments that students can control, and this is just usually in the first 15 minutes of my teaching day. I can use Schoology to deliver differentiated assignments to certain students without notifying the entire class. I can pull students into a breakout room using my second device to conference with them or have them share their screen so I can hold them accountable. I can create and post video walkthroughs for students to use as a reminder or to model at their own pace. Students can use the chat and message me privately if they need help, have a problem, or haven't yet built the confidence to speak out in front of the class. My last year in person, I was thinking of leaving the profession. I was burning out quickly, trying to wear all of the hats I needed, and I was still dropping the ball. At Port, I'm happy. I wake up every morning excited about work, and Sunday nights aren't dreaded anymore. I can't wait to plan in my computer and find more innovative ways to challenge my students. I am actually preparing students for career and college readiness by shaping their image of themselves as learners, as achievers, as lovers of schools. We change trajectories at Port. Here at the virtual learning program, we aren't just educating students. We aren't just building relationships. We aren't just calling parents. We are literally changing, modeling, reshaping, and motivating the next generation of excellence.
Okay, thank you very much, team. I'm going to put things back to Director Lanier. Thank you.
Thank you, Port family. I'm glad you all were able to put some faces and hear some voices of some of the amazing work that has taken place. I would love, before wrapping up, to share what's on the horizon for virtual learning at City Schools. So City Schools is establishing tenets and standards for virtual learning. We previously mentioned that this can be done effectively if we have an effective implementation and plan. And so we are going to ensure that we are implementing research best practices to make sure that our options are of quality. Our specific next steps will be to continue that virtual learning day option for the upcoming school year, pending board approval, to also reflect asynchronous days as well as synchronous days. We also are excited to continue to increase and expand those virtual course offerings to support school communities as well as the students who need the flexibility and the exposure. We are going to continue to explore how to have the opportunities to meet the unique learning needs of our students in the VLP. We are going to begin to we're going to begin to dive into student performance with that CVS model. What does the data look like to those students who are having their teacher who's not physically in person, as well as continue to look at the data from the VLPs. And then last but not least, have that emphasis of support, that wraparound support for VLPs. How are we ensuring that we're meeting their social emotional needs? So we are excited about all of the virtual opportunities, and it has been a pleasure to lead this work. I welcome any feedback, questions, comments to the students, to the school leader. I know we also may have some ILEDs on the call. Anything that you want to share, we are excited to hear from. We welcome feedback.
Thank you for this incredible work that is being highlighted for us this evening. I'm going to ask if Principal Dr. Wilby and our students, if everyone can come back on. It's good to see you all, Dr. Wilby and Director Lanier. In settings before, you were one of our principals in the VLP setting, so it's nice to see how you all are continuing to grow. I'm really encouraged by our young people, and David, Mr. Charles, as a musician, right? It's good to hear how you're still being very active, right? In the innovation of music and the arts, right? Because a lot of people may think and believe that you have to be in person to engage, and you're proving that you don't necessarily have to be. You can be remote, you can be virtual, you can be in diverse settings and still shine and thrive in and through the arts. One thing that I want, and I just really want to see your faces, that's all, and to our staff. I know that I see Commissioner Kenyatta Bay's hand, but before we do that, Ms. Lanier, talk to us a little bit about connectivity. Are there challenges with connectivity? What supports are being provided to our students, our families, and our staff to ensure that they're able to continue without interruption, learning and experiences that benefit them?
So our students in the VLP, we have the support. We have the devices from OIT, as well as last year's budget has allowed school leaders to have additional devices and support if there are some needs. With regards to the CVS model, we are still working on ensuring that every school who participates in that unique model has the devices that they need. And so we've come up with some creative solutions. While we're waiting for orders to be filled, we have the option of broadcasting the TV or the screen with the teacher, and they're able to get content that way. So not all schools have that challenge, but yes, there are some while we're still waiting for our orders to be filled.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Did you have any questions or thoughts?
There you go. I'm sorry. I was muted. Look, I want to first applaud the fabulous work that you've been doing. I want to say that I'm so very proud of these young scholars that are moving forward and finding an environment in which they can thrive, which leads me to the question of how you look in the future of expanding that. I know it was kind of, in bringing in these scholars, there was a very rigorous vetting that had to transpire, and yet I remember having taught in the pandemic, and I had to learn and pull all this virtual learning capability in, that there were students that thrived in this environment that may not have met your total vetting process, and so do we look to expand this opportunity because some students just operate better in this virtual environment. The second question, and I'm going to ask these two questions and stop there, is with your virtual substitute program, which I can't remember the acronym for exactly. But with the framework, how are we doing analysis? How are we doing the actual observation and making sure that, or is the framework in this environment shifted? Is it different from your standard framework? Are these teachers I know they're all certified and they're coming from across the country, but are they held to the same structure?
Yep.
And I think for the structure, as most of our teachers here in Baltimore City, is there a difference and in analysis and in operation? Because very simply, I was in a school that had a remote instructor, okay, and it worked very well. That partnership worked very well. It opened up the door for the on-site instructor. But is there real sharing? Is there a real co-teaching structure? Those are the questions I had.
Perfect. Those are really great questions. The first piece with expanding, we want to still continue to hold to the entrance criteria. That's our hope. There are unique instances where students can apply for a waiver. And there is a conversation between the ombudsman, myself, and both of the ILEDs, where we go through a process chart into determining, yes, no, the student did not meet the criteria, but, and then there are other qualifications that we look at to see if the student will be able to be supported in the VLP. And then we have trial bases, right? So no, you did not meet the criteria, but there's a unique instance where you are calling for this mode of instruction. And so we'll come back after Q1 to have a meeting to determine, is this the best fit? We'll listen to the student's perspective, the family's perspective, as well as the teacher to be able to determine, is virtual learning for you? The instances where health is the main priority, we have been partnering with Home and Hospital because their services really should meet those students' needs. And so I've been working closely with Dr. Pate to begin to think about how do we expand virtual options that meet the same quality as the VLP on the Home and Hospital front, so that she can also have the opportunity to not only have home teaching, but to also implement virtual learning. And so we have been working together and continue to look forward to do so in the future for students specifically around health specifics. The second question around feedback for, or like the instructional framework for the certified virtual substitutes. So these folks are contracted and contingent employees, so they don't necessarily follow under our evaluation system. What we do is we partner with the parent company in providing informal feedback. So we take the instructional framework and we do physical observations in the classroom as well as virtual observations, write up feedback and share it with the virtual coach. So the parent company we work with has a virtual instructional coach that also partners with the school's in-person coach, and they collaborate on next steps. We are looking, though, in the future to implement, in addition to the instructional framework, there are digital standards that we should be abiding by, because it's not necessarily a one-to-one. So like, yes, good teaching is good teaching, but how you deliver it looks a little differently virtually. And so we are looking to provide some PD and some supports around what does that look like. So to sum it up, we use the instructional framework, but it's just to provide informal feedback.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the team. Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta Bey, for your questions, for your thoughts. We do have another presentation this afternoon on wholeness, but it's been a pleasure to have the students with us, to have our staff with us, who've been doing really incredible work with our virtual learning programming. I'm going to ask our students, finally, if there's anything that you all would like to say before we move on to the next presentation.
I just want to say thank you. It was a pleasure being here, and I really love virtual learning.
That's awesome, Tamia. And for you to mention that sometimes you have anxiety, you've done a great job speaking with us this evening and expressing yourself. So you should be very proud of that. And I thank you for being with us this afternoon. Thank all the young people. I didn't want to exit if the two others had some additional things to say to us. If you don't, it's okay.
Yeah, I would just like to add, I really enjoy going to Port. I love it here. I will be a senior graduating, and I've never been happier. I used to go to in-person school for my first 2 years in Georgia, and it was just, I was miserable. And I moved here to Baltimore, and I attend Port, and it's been amazing. So this program isn't, I love it. And so it's helped me in so many different ways. And thank you for everyone's time.
Fun fact, I remember I remember the first time I came to Port, like in like COVID and everything hit, and I was like, oh, you gotta do virtual? No, no, not this. And then I adapted to it. I came to Port. They were so kind. They were motivating me to turn my camera on. That's why I can turn my camera on now and see all the beautiful faces I'm seeing right now. It's just so I feel great. I haven't felt like this in literally years. In middle school, I don't like to dwell on the past, but middle school was it was moody, I would like to say. It was moody, but came to Port, got my own environment. Sometimes I like to change the environment, which is the fun part about it. Sometimes I'll be in my room, and sometimes I'm like, maybe I should go in a lively spot. So I'll go in the backyard and feel the breeze and listen in to any education that's needed, take it all in, as like they say, education or knowledge is power. So I thank Port, and I'm glad I got to come here today. I feel like I learned something myself. Listening to our teachers talk, I'm listening to my teachers talk, and I'm like, I gotta be like that one day. How are they doing that? So
That's awesome, David, and hopefully you consider, as you're leaving us, right? You're about to graduate, that you consider teaching and giving back in the system. And if you are, we've got a job for you.
All
right.
I love to hear
Thanks to the team. Thanks everyone. And we're going to now turn it over to our wholeness team. Thank you all for being with us. I want to turn it over to our wholeness team for our next presentation. And I see that Dr. Warren put a few things in the chat as it relates to wholeness. So hopefully you'll illuminate some of that in your presentation as it relates to the virtual learning program as well. So thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And yes, I heard a lot of overlap there between the work of the VLP and our wholeness work, which is really exciting. So let me just get our deck up and running. All right, so thank you very much for having us here today. I am joined by some of my colleagues from different offices. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of drop off at this point. So I will just say that this is a collaborative effort between the whole child office, my team, as well as teaching and learning, and the human capital team. So we're working all across offices to make this work happen. There are 4 board priorities that we think that this presentation and our work link to most closely. And if we think back on the R3 plan, there are really 3 major buckets of work that connect to student wholeness. One is a focus on school culture and climate and social emotional learning and well-being. Another is wellness for both students and adults and mental health. And then the third is the expanded enrichment and academic opportunities. So those are the things we'll just give a quick update on today. I know we're a little bit late, and we also, our chiefs gave an update to the board just back in January, so we will try to keep this fairly brief. So within the broader commitments that were made, one of them was around a focus on school culture and climate. So making sure that all of our schools have that welcoming and inviting atmosphere for both our students and our families. So we've been hard at work on this for quite a while now, but just as a refresher, as a district, we have adopted a focus on these 9 culture and climate domains that you see at the bottom of the screen. And for the past 2 school years, we have been really focused on initially high quality stakeholder experience and nurturing relationships and well-being. And then this year we added a focus as well on school-wide and classroom norms and routines and supportive behavior approaches. So in other words, all of the 9 domains remain important, but these 4 domains are the ones where we're really investing the most time and energy and asking schools to prioritize their efforts and their focus. So we have really in the last few months in particular been focused on our climate walks and creating the tools and supports to help have consistent climate walks across our schools. We're still working on that. We're still continuously improving those tools and documents in collaboration with our schools, our ILEDs and managers and others. This is now out of date. The number of climate walks goes up continuously. We are doing the walks in partnership with schools, but increasingly as we go through the spring, given all that is sitting on the plates of our school leaders and their staff right now, increasingly these walks will get done by a team of central office staff who will go through. And then based on the information that we're gathering from those walks, we provide some focused support where we see the greatest need. And then climate walks, again, are focused just on those 4 priority domains. As time goes by, when we feel ready to move on, we will start to expand in the future to some of the other domains. So in addition to culture and climate work, one of the key areas of focus for us has been morning meeting and advisory. As you know, in the wake of the pandemic, we really made this a top priority for our schools. And people have been great in coming on board with this. We have now required, as a result of the 3 R's plan, that every school have, at the elementary level, morning meeting, and at the secondary level, advisory. So we have provided a lot of professional development for our educators to support them in lifting this work. We've provided resources, and those are accessible to everybody online so that they can adapt those resources for their needs in their classrooms. As we move forward, we'll be thinking about a more sort of standardized approach for advisory, but for the moment, everything that we're doing has been largely built in-house. And as I said, it's all available online through a Google site. And then we've also provided some support and tools to administrators so that they know what they should be looking for when they walk into classrooms. We have done, and you'll see in a second, some check-ins with students to try to hear a little bit more about how they're experiencing this process, and we would like to do a lot more of that. One of the things that is exciting is that as we're developing our approach to advisory and morning meeting, we are also looking at where that work intersects with some of the other activities that we're doing as a part of our 3 R's plan. One of those is the development of the student learning plans. So while the entire plan may not be developed during morning meeting or advisory time, it is a great place for teachers or advisors to start having a conversation with students around that social emotional learning portion of the plan. And then the other thing that we've been doing and will continue to do is to collaborate with the College and Career Readiness Office to make sure that we're integrating some of their content and lessons into morning meeting and advisory. So this is just a really brief snapshot. I won't dwell on it. As I mentioned before, we've been trying to build into the actual morning meeting and advisory curriculum or lessons some opportunities to check in with students and get their opinions and their feelings about how they're experiencing morning meeting and advisory. And these are just the categories that we're trying to get at, particularly around feelings, expression of feelings, connections to peers, pursuing future goals, and then connecting with adults. We're getting, relatively positive responses to these, but we both need to hear from a lot more of our students, and we want to make sure that the experience students are having is really meeting their needs. So we will keep working on that. And then when it comes to wellness and mental health, And I apologize, you're hearing all my voice, but some of my colleagues weren't able to make it today. But we really have zeroed in on this issue of our student wellness support teams, which we again created as a response to what we were experiencing during the pandemic. We realized that maybe we could had some room to grow in terms of promoting more collaboration between the folks at the school level who provide supports to students. So the social workers, psychologists, maybe student wholeness specialists, school counselors, school nurses. So bringing those folks together on a regular basis to collaborate with one another, but also to ensure that every student and family and all the staff know exactly who those folks are in the building that provide those types of supports to students and how to access them. So we have really returned to that process this year. We still have work to do to continue building out that model, but we have provided support and will continue to provide training and resources to the student wellness support teams to help them in beefing up their coordination and their visibility and supports for students. I will just note here at the bottom, we've mentioned our expanded school behavioral health program. As a reminder, that is our partnership with agencies in the city that we contract, and they come in and bolster the existing supports provided by our related services team. So our own social workers and psychologists who are in our building then get added support from these partner organizations and their clinicians. Our human capital team was on here earlier, and they give their regrets. They have been, oh, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, yeah, jump in, please.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Ashley Freed, and I am one of the employee wellness educators that sits in the human capital department at district office. So my colleague Christy and I have developed the Be Well employee wellness program. So our focus is on staff wellness. So bringing wellness opportunities and programs on site to schools and also at district office. So typically we do offer things on site, but also do a lot of programming virtually. So basically, if schools or staff are wanting massages, reflexology, cooking demos, fitness classes, those are some of the things that we've been able to provide on site. It really helps boost morale and obviously collaboration and partnership amongst the staff. We also do a lot of wellness challenges. So these are focusing on fitness and nutrition and stress management to, again, provide a little bit of that camaraderie between these staff. So we do like to try to bring some fun into the school day. We also have built a partnership with Burnalong for the staff. So this is a fitness platform that features thousands of live on-demand classes. Again, this is a free opportunity for staff to engage in. So we like to make sure that everybody's aware of these opportunities, such as Burnalong, as well as the carrier resources through Care First and Kaiser, and also Carillon, which is the new employee assistance program. So really making sure that staff are aware of these great opportunities that are available to them. We do have a calendar and a list of these resources on the Be Well website, which you can find through city schools. And you can always send us an email through the Be Well email address if you have any questions about the Be Well program. But thank you. Back to you, Dr. Warren.
Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate it. All right. And I'm also going to present on behalf of the athletics team because they are off, I think, running about 10 different events right now simultaneously. So today is actually the first day of our middle school basketball culminating tournament. So we have worked hard to expand our elementary and middle school offerings this year. And the team has done a great job, I think, of dividing this up, essentially creating 4 what they're calling sessions or seasons. They align roughly to the 4 quarters of the school year. We've already completed session 1 and 2, and now we're coming to the end of session 3 and having that closing tournament for basketball. And then soon we will head into the fourth and final session of this year for our middle school students. We've had some great participation, but I will say that we are also hard at work on a much broader middle school athletics expansion strategy. We're not quite ready to unveil it yet. We don't have the final results and sign off, but we will be excited to roll that out soon and to get even more of our students and schools taking part in middle school athletics next year. And of course, we continue on with our focus on high school athletics as well. It's taken a fair amount of work, I think, for our team to support schools in rebuilding these programs after the pandemic, but it is moving, and you'll be seeing some of our schools participating in basketball championships and some wrestling. I think we've got wrestlers in championships in the coming week or two as well. And now I will turn it over to my friend Chanel to talk to us about our snickerdoodles.
Thank you so much, Dr. Warren. Yes, and it's always my pleasure to come and talk to you about how we are advancing the arts in city schools on behalf of our snickerdoodles. So some of the progress points we'd like to mention today is that 90% of our students have access to visual art instruction. And many of you may know that this is definitely in alignment with our goals for the Fine Arts Strategic Plan. Our Fine Arts Strategic Plan says that we'll have 100% of our schools, so 100% of our snickerdoodles with access to visual art. Not that far off. 68% of our students have access to general music. More and more of our fine arts resources and materials in city schools is growing with the influx of funding that we've had to all of our schools. We've been able to top off, if you will, what teachers have had access to. So we've been able to go more in depth with different types of artistic processes and materials. So we're really excited about that. We're always excited about the revised curriculum. I always joke and I say that curriculum is my Achilles heel. Like, it is the thing that we constantly do. And probably for about the first 3 years of my tenure as a fine arts coordinator, I could not get dance curriculum right. Like, they were always telling me, we hate this so much. Chanel, we love you, but we do not like this last iteration of curriculum. But I'm glad to say today that we got it right this time. So when it's our time to talk about the new iterations of curriculum, we'll be able to expound a little bit more about that. But we're really excited about that. We've had oh my goodness, such a last good year, and this year as well, in terms of the funding that we've been able to extend to schools, a part of Arts as Healing as well. We spent a ton of money in tunes of the millions of dollars over the last 2 years. We've had the opportunity to spend on arts, period. It's on the arts, period. So some of those buckets are a little bit different. It's in programming, it's in materials, but all of that money has been spent at the school level. It's some money from the district level that we've been able to spend to just beef up arts programming across. Some of the work that we're so glad to keep growing is the instrumental music pathways that we're developing in city schools. We've been able to spend the money on music instruments, specifically on band instruments. We've also had pots of money that we've spent on general music instruments. We've been able to reshape our curriculum again so that we're focusing on voice as an instrument, so that is not being left out as well. Lots of other things that I know this is not my show. However, it is not like the fine art show, so I can't tell it all. But this is just a snapshot of where we're going, and we're very excited about where we're headed in fine arts. Thank you, Dr. Warren, for the opportunity. I'm punting back to you.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And just to close, obviously all of this work is very much ongoing. And in fact, as soon as we create a deck for you, it's pretty much out of date. So we'll be pursuing, as I said earlier, the climate walks. We're excited that we have an upcoming professional development day, our systemic PD day for teachers and other school-based staff. We'll have a heavy focus on student wholeness with a particular focus within that on morning meeting and advisory. We're working on kits for schools that will go out to them to support their morning meeting and advisory work. And then we'll continue on with the work around our student wellness support teams in particular. And as you saw in the slides, we've still got, I think, 2 more wellness days to come for our staff. Athletics is charging ahead, both middle school and high school. And we always partner with across offices to do these systemic PD days. And one of the things we love having is our colleagues from the arts team, and sometimes our partners from outside like Hopkins, to bring that healing, arts as healing focus into those sessions as well. And then we've got another area of work that we haven't particularly highlighted here, but in addition to athletics, we are really working hard to increase the extracurricular opportunities for our students more generally. And we have some exciting opportunities there, given the increase in concentrations of poverty and Kerwin funding coming our way. So with that, I will pause and ask if there are questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta-Bey.
Good day. Hey, look, thank you very much for the work. You have decided to consume an elephant, and you can only do that at one bite at a time. So you have a great big challenge. I have a couple of questions in front to put forward to you. First, we were talking about the learning walks, okay? And I'm going like, the question that I came up with, who's on these learning walks? Because as you described them, I'm hearing central office, I'm hearing, but what I'm not hearing is community. What I'm not hearing is stakeholders in there. Are they part of your learning walks? And I'm just going to run down these questions if you save time, okay? The next thing is your advisories. As I've witnessed advisory, they've been used more for data gathering tools than they have for actual advisory. I mean, and there's a lot of data we have to gather. But still, teachers are kind of strung. Oh, this is the only time we have to gather this information. School culture. I just spent two days at the school I just finished teaching at Patterson. And if our school culture, as we talk about our partnerships, our school culture cannot be restricted to our schools. And the reason why I'm saying that, because the problem is not just a school problem that we're seeing. There's a whole community problem. So I'm always looking for links in PTSD among our students. And we talked not upon our staff. Nice to have a cooking class, but we're all suffering past this pandemic. We're all coming out of a trauma, and so I just wanted to know how you are addressing those things. And when you talk about PDs for staff, I'm talking about entire staff. I'm talking about not only, I'm talking about your climate officers, I'm talking about your janitorial staff, because we interact, and so that's a wholeness thing. Last thing, arts, arts, thank you. As an artist, it really does me very good. And I just wanted to know if we're expanding our partnerships. And I noticed the slide talked about Arts Every Day, which is a standard, very good, great partner. Okay, but there are other arts organizations and small arts organizations around town. So are we weaving them into the matrix of arts expansion? And that's about all. Oh, new employees too. A lot of new employees don't feel like they're really being supported. And I know my first year in teaching, I was a deer in the headlights. Okay, but what can we do to alleviate that? Those are the things that kind of concern me. Throw it all out there, have fun, tear it apart.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. Those are all really, really great questions. I tried to take notes, so we'll try to hit them all quickly. Chanel, maybe do you want to start out with the arts and then we can kind of work backwards?
Sure. Yes. So you likely hear Arts Every Day mentioned as much as you do, and it's because of the unique relationship that we have with Arts Every Day as our partner in collective impact. So and when it's my turn for Fine Arts Update, I'll have a slide or two that just kind of helps this explain that collective impact partnership with Arts Every Day as a backbone organization, but also as a backbone organization, what they help us do is to make sure, Commissioner, that we are reaching to the entire landscape of community arts partners. And so we do try to make sure that we ensure, and it's hard to kind of get a sense of everybody because we have like new organizations that that pop up each year. But what we do try to make sure that we do is we put out the word about all of the work that we're doing in city schools and fine arts. We invite community members to come and be a part of that work. So while some organizations might not be able to provide a service or have a structure or capacity to support in certain ways, we do try to make sure that everybody is at the table so they're aware of all of the things that we're doing. And then additionally to that, we also make sure that where organizations do have the capacity to support and ask that it's not just the same ones every time. We make sure that, we're extending opportunities and offers for as much as is prudent for the work that we're doing. I hope that answers your questions, and I'm happy. Send me a question. I'm happy to answer more in depth if that's not good.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chanel. Ashley, I don't know if we still have you here. Are you still with us? I think she had to jump to a different call. Okay, so I can speak a little bit to this issue of mental health support for staff. I would certainly love for the human capital team to weigh in on that when they maybe are in front of you at another time. But what I will say, having been involved in some of the crisis response work, is that I think I and many of us are aware of just the huge toll that this takes on staff. Certainly not only the people in the school building, although I think that's where the impact is greatest, but even the folks here in central office, folks who are responding. But I was talking to one of our beloved custodians today, and she was talking about how this was affecting her. I think people here are in this work because we love kids, and so it's painful. And I think that we have worked hard across offices to try to support our adults in these situations, not only by bringing in EAP, but in some cases we've brought in our community partners. So BCRI has come in a couple of times at MERVO. That's a Baltimore Crisis Response Inc., I think the I stands for. They've been really wonderfully supportive of us, being able to kind of bring in and bolster that support that our own EAP services are able to provide. Even MSDE has come in and provided some added support with some of their clinical experts. So we have had some great, I'd say, collaboration around that in the wake of recent crises. But to your point, it's not like this is just something that goes away in a day or two. And this is compounded on top of what people have experienced as part of the pandemic, which already I think has created just a lot of added stress. So I would humbly say, just from where I sit, that I think we've been trying to do better, but we still have a long way to go. And to your point, in general, around partnership, both in support of our adults and our students, and in trying to figure out how best to provide a safe, welcoming, and joyful learning environment for all of our students, I agree with you completely. That's not something we can do alone. It has to be done in partnership and collaboration with our community and the various aspects of the community. We didn't highlight it here, but I will note that we have a partnership that's still kind of in the works. It hasn't fully launched yet, but with the mayor's office and Monzi, their neighborhood initiative, and hope that maybe we can learn some things there about how we collaborate between the mayor's office and ours, as well as community organizations around some of those issues related to culture and climate and violence prevention and response. So that's one example. I will say we've also had some of our beloved and trusted community partners in the schools with us, helping to respond in the wake of recent crises. Often they are already in the schools and very connected to our students and have some of those relationships that help support our young people in the wake of one of these incidents. So we're really grateful for all of the partners that are already working with us. And I think there's more we can do to build out those relationships and that support. And then you mentioned advisory being for data gathering, which kind of breaks my heart. Yes, that's really good feedback. Not good feedback, but no, I think it's real. The fact of the matter is that we have very limited time with our students in our schools, and sometimes it's hard to figure out where to fit these things in. And I think it can be justified that, well, we're trying to get student voice and isn't advisory about student voice, and therefore we're going to use this time for surveys. It's not really how we want advisory to be used. And I think as we move forward, we will continue to message that that's really not the purpose of advisory. But I understand why that happens, because there really are limited, minutes in a day. But thank you for kind of calling that out. And I think that's something we need to continue to work on. And then your excellent point about these learning walks. So we actually just had this conversation with our ILEDs today about how, as we build out this and try to refine this process for the learning walks, how do we begin to include some of our students and student leaders and family members and maybe community partners. So we're building and experimenting with it as we go. I can't promise that we'll have all of that done by the end of the year, but that is definitely our goal, is to make it a more open and collaborative process. So thank you for that question and that nudge.
Thank you, y'all. Good work, guys. Just good work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, peace.
So I understand that, and thank you for that, Dr. Warren and Commissioner Bay, for your questions and your thoughts, that things will not be completed right by the end of this year. But the board has a pretty rigorous goal of 80% of our students being able to respond in wholeness surveys. And I want to say it was like a climate survey or just a wholeness survey. We want to make sure that we're moving toward that. I'm curious to know whether or not the results of last year's survey, right, from our students, if that has been translated to the information in today's update, and what specific steps, if you haven't already mentioned them, are we taking to make sure, because we know that our students have to feel safe. We know that we have to make sure that we provide social emotional learning supports, lessons, activities, environments for them. And it's not just a thing that we say that we do, but it has to be embedded and woven throughout the fabric of all of our school communities. And so that also means that not only do our students respond in that way, but our staff responds in such a way that creates environments for students to respond in that way and for their parents to feel as if their young people are safe. And so I'm curious, with that 80% target that the board has, did we use the survey results from last year to kind of chart a plan forward? And is some of that represented in the information that was presented this afternoon?
Yes, thank you. That's a really great question. So, and let me try to answer it. And if I don't hit the mark, you tell me, and I'll keep going. But so, a couple of things. One, I think part of what you're getting at is what I have been feeling recently, which is there's a difference between setting goals and actually seeing it play out and have that impact that we want to see. So we have our targets, but we have to make sure that that then becomes a real thing for our students and that they're experiencing that. So, and they're the ones to tell us that, right, through the survey. We did take that data. We looked at it both at the central level, but then when we met with our principals and leadership institutes over the summer, we shared our district goals, and then we actually have that broken out by sub goals. So for our own internal sort of work and management to get to that 80% that you're talking about, we have focused in on chronic absenteeism as a major issue, the student wellness support teams and the mental health as a major goal, the climate walks and the focus on culture and climate, and our athletics and extracurricular offerings, and then morning meeting and advisory. So those are kind of the key things that we are focusing on to try to drive that movement towards that 80% in the wholeness composite score. We took all of those, the big goal and then the sub goals to our principals, our school leaders this summer. And then we also showed them the overall data from the survey. And then we gave each set of school leaders the data from their respective schools so that they could see clearly what their own students were trying to say to them. And we had them reflect on what the data was telling them about their students' experiences and where they were going to need to take action in their own schools to try to move that data. And I think it was a really, we're still in the early stages of trying to do this and work towards district goals like this, but I think it was a really important part of that process and that conversation. One of the things that I think I heard several principals say was, well, we thought all of our students knew how to access mental health supports, but that's not what the student data is telling us. So that was one of the examples where we know we've got to keep leaning in and pushing on that piece of the work because the supports are actually in the building. And so it's really sort of unforgivable if we can't make, if not every student knows where to find that support. So we have to keep leaning into that. And that's where we're trying to coordinate with these and support the student wellness support teams to make that happen. The culture and climate piece, again, we're pushing on the culture and climate walk, although we will also be, looking at the data from the state's culture and climate survey and triangulating that as well. So I would say, yes, we are looking at that data. We're trying to make use of it and break it down into smaller goals. The morning meeting and advisory piece is really essential because it is the one dedicated space in the schedule of the students' week where, of course, what we want is for students to be building relationships with their peers and adults throughout every day and every class. And we want the building and the experience to feel safe and supportive all the time. But that is the one really dedicated time and space where our students can, express their voice, talk about issues that are going on around them, and really process what they're feeling in the presence of their peers and a supportive adult. So that we just will continue to push on that piece as well. And we've got a major sort of campaign going on right now around the attendance piece, because if our kids aren't in school, then we can't educate them, and we also can't provide these added supports and build those relationships that we need. So I would say we're working on all fronts, and it's I think it's moving, and we have to keep moving.
I appreciate that. Thinking about what Commissioner Bay was mentioning about that advisory time, in addition to what you're illuminating, what I've noticed in visiting schools and having conversations with principals and students, things are done differently, right, from school community to school community, which to me, and not the folks that are working in the space every day and look and analyzing every day, but to me, it becomes tough to kind of really pinpoint what is actually happening in the advisory moment. It's advisory, and then I saw something else.
The morning meeting.
Yes, the morning meetings, right? The morning
Yeah.
meetings and the advisory time. So I'm curious to know a few things. Certainly in future presentations, I would love to hear more students and their perspectives and maybe even have some of them come, but also hearing from school leaders. How are these particular components of our wholeness work being illuminated in our schools? And then what are some best practices? And then what are some challenges? Because I do know that there are schools that are utilizing, particularly high schools, that are utilizing the time well. And then to Commissioner Bay's point, there are, I mean, we're taking surveys or we're doing various things that may not necessarily be in alignment with our goals and our priorities. So I would like to see and hear more of that moving forward in this setting. And then also, if we could, because I appreciate the student responses, the 188 for the morning meetings and the 123 for the advisory, I would be interested to see how that is disaggregated by grade band. Right? So what does that look like in the elementary school? What does it look like in our K through 8s or our middle schools? What does it look like in our high schools? And then how are we using that information to tailor programs that best meet the needs of our young people, but also our school communities that are varying, right? They're different. Our school communities are all different. But I could probably name a few high schools right now that are doing this very well. And then some, based on student feedback, our students don't always value that time, right? And so why don't they value that time in certain schools, but they value the time in others? So I would like to hear that illuminated moving forward. And then here's an actual question that I have as we are in the immediate 24 budget season. There are a lot of things happening in our communities that impact our schools. And we know that we're seeing it. We just saw it yesterday, right? We're seeing it almost every other day within our school communities. And I know that even in my school today, one of my school counselors was pulled out of our building to be a part of a trauma team at another school because of an incident that happened at another school. There's a lot happening in our world and a lot happening in our communities. And unfortunately, although city schools responds, right, to these traumatic and tragic events that are happening in communities that are then impacting our schools, that's a lot on our staff. Right, that's a lot on them, you know. It's a lot on our young people to have to navigate and manage. And so I'm curious to know if we are budgeting and planning, and I don't know, I'm asking the question because I'm asking the question, right? Do we create a team that is constantly, hey, Dr. Dabrowski, constantly prepared to whether it is in networks, I don't know, but that is specifically assigned, given where we are right now, given the all of the traumatic experiences that are happening. Do we have dedicated teams in networks somewhere centrally to be dispersed to schools? Here's what I also know. I do know that we have partners, right, within our communities that have contracts with city schools that can also be a part of these teams to support school communities as we're experiencing these abnormal situations. I mean, it's unfortunate what is happening and the amount of young people, it hurts. And I want to kind of pass even talking about it, but the amount of young people that are losing their lives almost every day. And so how do we prepare teams to support schools and school leaders? Because school leaders have to figure out also how to navigate the delicate dance of moving forward, still making sure that instruction is happening while students are whole and staff members are whole, right? So that's my question. If you captured the question, Are we looking to centrally um, create teams and then looking at in the networks, right? How can we support ILEDs and networks to make sure that there are folks readily available to support the needs of school communities when so many traumatic events are happening, but when traumatic events are happening. And it's not something, and we've mentioned it before, that we want to be ready for, right? But we have to be ready for.
Yeah. I have some thoughts, but I think Dr. Dabrowski would like to say something, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Dr. Dabrowski, first.
Thank you so much, Dr. Warren, and Commissioner McFadden. Thank you so much for naming and framing the way you have. And I will just lift up that this has been part of budget conversations, thinking about a dedicated, centralized group of colleagues to support, knowing that there are these acute moments where we need to have a rapid response. And then there's the ongoing work of supporting all of our staff, as I think we've lifted up in earlier questions, around the managing of the social emotional impacts of the violence that we're experiencing. And you're right to say it is not normal, and we should never start to normalize it. And so I think the work we're doing now in our budget conversations aligns with exactly what you're asking. And I would hold off on any final decisions because we are in the process of those budget conversations and putting forward our recommendations, knowing that there's cross-office work that's already happening. So both within Dr. Warren's office, along with our Office of Special Education, which is where our related service providers are housed. There's a lot of cross-functioning work in addition to our community partners and in addition to our school-based partners. And I will say that when we pull from other places to support an acute situation, we do run the risk of not being there for another student who needs us for other things. So your points are absolutely well taken, heard, and affirmed, and appreciate your raising it, because I think as we work in our budget, hearing from the board their priorities is also helpful for our prioritization. And Dr. Warren, please go ahead and chime in.
Thank you for that, Dr. Dabrowski. Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned, and I would just add a little bit, that in addition to what's been put forward for this current budget cycle and our hopes for what we might be able to, beef up in our teams next year, we this year, unfortunately, have had too many opportunities to learn and to figure out how to better do this kind of crisis response. And I will just say there's been some really strong collaboration across many offices. Ours, special education, but, we're working very closely with ILEDs and managers and principals, obviously. We work with human capital because they need to bring in the adult support component. The chief Perkins Cohen does a lot of the work along with Chief Davis around figuring out sort of some of the higher level response that the communications team is involved, so it ends up being an all hands on deck situation. And I will again shout out some of our really wonderful community partners who've really shown up for us and been there present. The first incident being at the end of the day on Friday before Labor Day weekend, and they showed up that weekend. They were there for us all the way up until today. So all of these incidents have pushed on us and forced us to reflect with one another and strengthen our systems and our mechanisms for communication, so that while we have the current set of resources that are available to us, we are responding in the most thoughtful and coordinated way possible.
Commissioner Bay.
Yes, I have, and this is, it's nothing that we have not done in the past, okay? I have a problem with response, because response means that it's already happened, okay? Proactively, what is being woven into this so that, we can mitigate some of this, when we can limit some of the violence that we see. And I see that you're doing things. I see that, the wellness, et cetera, is end of it, but there's something we need to do more, because I think being able to respond is great. But at this time, I mean, we're looking after the tragedy, and we have to be the pilot that has to, I don't care how scared we are, we have to land that plane, whether it's in the Hudson or not. We have to be able to take control at the helm. And I know it's difficult. I'm not saying that this is an easy thing. But if we don't begin looking on the other side of the coin of proactive actions, what we're doing is opening the door that all we do is respond. And so I put that out there, and maybe it's just because I've been involved in the last couple of days, but it really has. This happened a little while back when I see an email that says, "This is a tragedy. It didn't happen here," or something. But that's, it's like there's no proactive input, and that's where I'm looking. I'm looking for that. And I don't know whether or not you have an answer. I don't know whether or not you're developing one, but I think it's one that needs to be considered. What do we do to stem this tide? And that's basically all I have to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, to be focused on the response is just awful. It's not where we should be. And yes, I think there are a number of things that folks are trying to work on from different angles in the realm of prevention. Some of those things are in partnership with the mayor's office and other partners in the city, because we know part of what's happening here is that we're seeing the violence and this culture of violence that's going on in the city spilling into and around our schools. So it's not limited to the schools, and in some cases not even in the building, but that still has this horrific impact on our school communities. So part of it is, I think, continuing to enhance those partnerships. I think a lot of us are trying to learn and better understand some of those dynamics in the city and among our students, better understanding things like gang violence, so that we can have a clearer picture of what it is that we are actually dealing with here. And it comes into play in all kinds of places and conversations, everything from when we're transferring a student from one school to another after a suspension or after an incident takes place, being able to see ahead to whether we're potentially creating an unintended consequence by moving a student to the wrong place. Like, that's just one thing. We are in the process of organizing a training from the Baltimore City Police for our school leaders and district leaders around gangs and what that means and looks like, and how we can better understand that dynamic in our schools. And of course, I mean, a big piece of this is building those relationships with our students, because not only does that help us potentially hear about things before they turn into something bigger, but that is where we also hopefully identify the students that are in need of more support in one way or another. So it's not a satisfying answer. I know there's so many other elements to this. I think people are trying to work on it and talk about it, and there are some partnerships, in the works around this. But obviously we have a lot more work to do.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the team. There is some really great work that is happening with homeless and throughout our school communities and throughout city schools. But certainly we know that we together have work to do to continue to support our young people and to support our communities. What I will say is that a couple of weeks ago, a few of you were with us. The board met with Mayor Scott and members of his cabinet and his team to really figure out and several community partners and organizations were represented to really move the needle as it relates to supporting our young people, violence that is happening in our communities, but also how that impacts what happens in our schools each and every day. And so just to members of our community, continue to keep your eyes and ears open to that work, because it is now a task force and a group of members of the board included, several different city agencies that are working to improve life for our young people in communities, but certainly also in our schools. It's just another layer, not to say that it is the solution that will fix everything, but just the village raises one, right? So if the village continues to work, we'll be able to better support our young people and hopefully improve the outcomes for them. So thank you to the team that is here, to Dr. Warren, Dr. Dabrowski, thank you all for being with us, and all members of the team that were represented for this presentation this afternoon. Thank you. I want to move us to our procurement agenda, which I do not have questions about. Commissioner Bay, do you have any questions or thoughts? Good afternoon, Ms. Matthews.
Hello.
Yes, as I look at the procurement agenda, and I look at the Pearson, the nonverbal third edition, and as I looked at it, I want to know whether or not that expands beyond elementary as far as its implementation and what has been the results. I know it's used to identify gifted and advanced learning, but candidates, but I'm wondering whether it has been necessary. When I look at the I don't know if I'm saying it right, Yeliana SAT prep, the question that I have is, and I just wanted just some sort of understanding why, if everybody is running or moving, higher education institutions are moving away from SAT. Are we really pushing something that is on its last legs, is the question. And the last one is the panorama education. And these are just three questions that I had. And I just need an explanation. What do you mean by, and it's probably just me not knowing, you want to come into piggyback the Harris County Choice Partners contract. And I just need to know what that means. And that's all. Those are the questions I had looking over those items.
Well, Commissioner, it looks like you've got the right team that's ready to respond to your questions right here in front of you. I see Dennis Jutras. I see his hand up, ready to respond, but you've got several folks here that are able to. But Dennis, if you'd like to respond to his first, no?
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, that's a weird agreement. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, very quickly, the Naglieri, don't make fun of me. The Naglieri assessment is actually age norm for ages 4 through 18. And so while we principally use it as a screener for universal K screening, case in point, we've had 7,000 plus students screened this year, 2,000 of which are in grades above K. So we use it as part of our continuum of identification throughout the tenure of a student's longevity in Baltimore City schools.
Okay, has it been effective?
Yes, actually, if you part of the procurement indicates that over the past several years, we've gone from a 4.2% of identification of GAL students to 9.1%. And in this past iteration, we're averaging between 15 and 17% identification hit rate versus a 10% historical average. So we're moving more quickly towards hitting the 10% threshold that we need to be at as a district. So it has proven highly effective, especially for identifying our EL populations. We have a very good identification rate of our ELs. In fact, we're regularly questioned, and Laura can attest to this, by other districts asking how we do such a good job of identifying gifted EL students.
Thank you. That was my next question about that too, but you answered it right there on the spot. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I would just add, Commissioner, we can resend it to you, but in the latest compliance report we provided a couple meetings ago, we have actually some of the data. You can see the percentages if it's helpful too.
Okay, no problem. And I understand you're leaving. So I'm going to miss you. Okay.
Thank you. I'm
Next.
gonna miss everybody.
So good afternoon, and I'm happy to jump in on the Ileana SAT question. So thank you for that, Commissioner. Yes, many schools, but not all schools, are going test optional. We are not ready, however, to remove this service for our students, because for schools, for colleges and universities that are test optional, the best way to think about this is not submitting a score can't hurt you, but submitting a score can help you if that score then becomes part of your application package, right? And so we want to make sure that we're providing our students with all opportunities. And for our students, where this does become a positive part of their college application resume, that they still have that opportunity. And so we're just not at a place right now where we're ready to completely pull away from that for test optional schools. But then also we do have a lot of students applying to schools where it is not currently optional. And so we'll continue to monitor the landscape with college admissions. However, at this time, we want to make sure we are continuing to provide this opportunity to our scholars. So thanks for that.
I have one last, well then, let me ask this, because I know not having it is not going to, sink the boat, but having it and scoring at very low rates.
But then you don't have to submit it.
Okay.
So that's the benefit, right? So if you, that's such a great question. But if you take the exam and you don't feel it's value add to your resume, you don't have to submit it. If you take the exam and you do feel your score is value add, you can submit it, and it does provide an enhancement to your resume.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. No, it's a great question. Thanks for that.
Okay, and I think the last question is related to Panorama and piggybacking.
Right.
So what's your specific question again, Commissioner?
I mean, what's that structure? Please just kind of
explain. So that means
just give an overview of the piggyback process. What does that mean?
Right. So that means that the entity has already completed the procurement, and we are writing all of the terms and the conditions of the contract. So we're seeking permission to move forward with a contract that's already in place, but using a scope of work that is benefits city schools.
Okay, thank you. That's all. Just clarity for me. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Hey, Holly.
Anything else that the procurement team wants to add before we move into public comment? Shabray, you're muted.
I'm that person today. Just those 4 items for consideration. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you to the team.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good evening. We do have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Moore, we do have one person signed up for public comment this evening, and that is Mrs. Christina Duncan Evans. So I want to make sure that we give space. Hello, Ms. Duncan Evans. It seems like I haven't seen your image or face for a while. I hope all is well.
Yes, certainly. Thank you for the welcome.
Absolutely. Go ahead. You've got 3 minutes.
Okie dokie. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm certainly happy to be here. I have a number of questions today related to the presentation to the board on the Kirwan draft plan that's being submitted on the 15th of this month. First opportunity.
Give me 1 second, Ms. Duncan Evans. I'm a bit distracted by someone else who has just come on camera. It looks like Matthew Cobb. There we go. Thank you. Go ahead.
No problem. So a couple of questions about the Kerwin presentation that was made to the board on the February 28th board meeting. We noticed that the presentation said that on February 17th, a draft was released for public comment. It wasn't clear whether that meant a draft of the entire submission or a draft of the PowerPoint. And so no one I've spoken to at BTU was aware that if this was the full plan, it was available. Had we known, we definitely would have submitted comments and feedback. So one of my questions, my first question is, where was it released for public comment so that we can make sure that any gaps on our end are taken care of, because we certainly don't want to be left out of the loop when it comes to being able to provide input and feedback on something of this magnitude. The second, I will send these questions in writing because they can be a little bit detailed. My second question refers to a phrase on slide 26 of the slideshow, where the phrase comprehensive in-service educator training, including ensuring all educators have training to support student behavioral health. My question is about the meaning of the word comprehensive in that context, because my understanding of this submission is that it is meant to describe work that has been happening, that is happening now and has happened in the past. We consistently get requests from members around student behavioral health, not just training, but other resources, additional personnel. And if the district is saying that since the district is saying that there's comprehensive in-service educator training on student behavioral health, we are asking more details about what comprehensive means, because it is still being communicated to us from our members as a gap. Slide 17 talks about the hiring and retention of high quality teachers and diverse teacher candidates. It says that obstacles have been identified in the hiring of teachers of color. We'd like more information about what obstacles have been identified. And we relatedly my question number 4 is that slide 17 does not address the retention of teachers of color. This is a particular area of interest because of the Black Teacher Recruitment and Retention Work Group, which many BTU members have been on. And so we're wondering what efforts have been made to retain teachers of color, and were those included and documented in the plan that's being turned into the state on 3/15. Also in the area of pipelines, it is news to us that City Schools has a Grow Your Own program. Despite the fact that we've been attempting to engage the district for several years on a related pipeline, PSRP to Teacher. Grow Your Own means a lot of different things in different places. Sometimes it can mean PSRP pipelines, sometimes it can mean youth pipelines, sometimes it can mean community and parent pipelines into the classroom. We've been trying to engage the district on PSRP to Teacher for some time, and we would like to be partners in this work, but currently we don't have enough information from the district on what this looks like, nor have we received outreach to engage us on this topic. My final question is really more of a suggestion, and it is to lift up an opportunity for additional grant funding related to something the district has identified as a major strategy point. City Schools is implementing a plan to mitigate over-identification of students with disabilities, and will also monitor the proportionality of suspensions among students with disabilities. Last week, same day as the school board meeting for the district, the state board also met, and Superintendent Chaudhry announced a new grant program specifically for this type of work to study and reduce disproportionality in identification, placement, and discipline of special education students. The Maryland State Board of Education is going to be awarding at least three LEAs, at least $1 million, maximum $1 million. So 3 LEAs will get up to $1 million specifically for this work. And I just wanted to inform members of the committee that there is additional funding available to do this work on top of what we're getting from Kerwin. It's called the Reducing Over-Identification in Special Education Grant Program. The description is in slide 57 of the state board
Ms. Duncan Evans.
Mhm.
Ms. Duncan Evans.
Yes,
Hi.
ma'am.
Hi. Yes. Could you wrap up your last thoughts for us, please? Thank you.
Yep. And the application is due on May 16th. That's it. Thanks.
I appreciate that. I did hear that in the state superintendent in that meeting as well. So I'm looking forward to and send that in writing, as I know that you will. But I know members of staff were here this evening too, to also make sure that we're included. Members of this committee are included in the responses that come back to you. I'm interested in hearing that information as well coming back from our staff. Thank you for being here and thank you for representing yourself, but I know that you work also on behalf of the teachers union, so thank you. We will not meet, this committee will not meet in April. The next meeting, because it's spring break, we're almost there. As an educator, you know, we're looking forward to that period of self-care, but also time with family and any religious observances that folks may be observing. So we're looking forward to that spring break time that is coming up, which is one of the reasons why city schools were not meeting. This committee will not meet in April, but we will be meeting again in March. The next meeting of this committee will be on May 2nd, 2023. And we're looking forward to that. And if I may just preview items on that meeting, we'll be reviewing the operator renewal process. It will be an informational update. So if there are members of the public that want to join us, please join that meeting or send your questions or thoughts into the board. We'll hear an R3, accelerated learning and personalized learning with the focus on middle of the year data. This will be our middle of the year data update. And then the employee evaluation update. The compliance report on policy IHBJ, public charter schools. It will be a presentation during that May 2nd meeting as well. And just to, just want to thank staff for the update that you all provided for policy IKEB, graduation standards. We're deferring that compliance report to the May meeting as well, because we're still waiting on some information from the State Department. Commissioner Bay, are there any additional thoughts or questions?
None. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And with that, we are finished. We will adjourn this meeting at 5:35 this evening. Have a great evening, everyone.
Peace.